Good morning. It's Kirsten Liebelt. How are you? It's Monday morning. I hope you're doing really, really well. I really do. I started my Instagram and it didn't work. So hold on just a second. I have to fix that. So today I want to talk about something that's kind of super interesting. I was looking up some information on just insulin resistance, and I came up with something that just has to be an absolute myth. Like, how can this possibly be true? You tell me if you think that this is a true or is this a myth? Whoops. True or myth? Air quality is connected to insulin resistance. What is that even all about? Like, seriously, you guys, this is so bizarre, I feel like, in my life. Like, how can everything be connected? Good morning. It's Kirsten Liebelt. You're on now. Good. Yay. It's just bizarre to me. So I would love to know if you're on the replay where you're coming in from. That's always very, very exciting for me. If you don't know who I am, that's totally cool. You don't have to. But my name is Kirsten Liebelt, and I was raised by an insulin-dependent type 2 dad. And it was literally my whole childhood. It was everything we did. And you know what's super interesting to me is that like the highlight of our childhood, and we even mentioned it at his funeral because it was such a highlight. This is terrible. He died at 63, by the way. Was that we never passed up a Dairy Queen. Like, we never did. Like, if there was a Dairy Queen, we were stopping. And, you know, it's kind of like you look back on that and you're like, well, that probably wasn't like wisdom, right? Like, what the heck? But anyway, and so it basically really did shape my life. And I didn't know it was shaping my life at the time. Of course I didn't. But I probably started my insulin resistance when I was really kind of young. And now, as we talk about how, you know, fatty liver is even in our children, like 50 years ago, it was only in adults that were alcoholics. And now it's in our children. I can see how that probably would happen. And so, because I started really young, so much so that when I had my first baby, when I was pregnant, like at 22, 23, I was gestational diabetic, took my blood 4 times a day, hypoglycemic with my second baby. Like, I started my insulin resistance showing up really young. And now that's even more common. I'm 59, so this was a while ago, right? My oldest is 35 now. But just point being that this has been going on for a really, 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 really long time. And now we're just kind of starting to get to the point where we can actually put some pieces together, become our own advocates, take back our bodies so that we can feel good finally, so we don't have to live where we're just exhausted all the time. And that was me when I was raising my babies. I would just be napping on the living room floor like all the time. And, you know, maybe you're hangry. Maybe you have, you know, like some of the common signs, skin tags, skin discoloration. You're just chasing carbs and sugar. And it's just because your cell's not getting energy. And so you're really tired. And so then you're craving more. You're having a hard time sleeping maybe. And there are all sorts of these symptoms that are really frustrating. And I feel like when we enter the matrix, we don't get the answers that we want. Or at least that's what y'all are telling me in my inbox. And you have been for a few years now. So anyway, and so I wanted to talk about this today because I feel like it really shocked me when I first started doing a little deeper dive. And I'm like, how can this possibly be? Well, I just think that God made our bodies to function really, really, really well. And so when they are disrupted by so many different things, there are just a lot of different effects. And so I'm going to go over some research that they actually have studies that are now showing that there is a direct correlation to air quality and insulin resistance. And I thought this is really interesting. So if you're somebody who already you're dealing with asthma, maybe you're dealing with, you're really sensitive to mold. Maybe you're really, you just have allergies in general, or maybe 2020 revealed to you kind of upper respiratory compromise. And you were like, okay, whoa, didn't know that about myself, maybe. But there are a lot of upper respiratory. I live in Minnesota. I was saying on my stories this morning, somebody had commented and said, I love your Minnesota accent. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I can hear it in myself. It's like, really strong. But in Minnesota, we have dealt with a ton of wildfires over the last 2 years, 2, maybe 3, coming from Canada, et cetera, or just from the West. And so all of a sudden in Minnesota, where it wasn't common, now it's common to get these air quality alerts. And it's really challenging on people. So anyway, so I want to go through this with you and see what we can come up with for today. Let me know where you are if you're coming in on the replay. All right, let's get going. I love this stuff, you guys. I'm such a geek and I know it. It's okay. All right, so poor air quality has been increasingly linked to insulin resistance and other metabolic disorders. I kind of liken this to, if you've heard about obesogens, and I think I've done a live on this before. Obesogens are when you put stuff on your body that's toxic, it literally can like affect your fat cells. Like that's a whole nother conversation, but this is interesting. Here are some key points that illustrate this relationship. So number 1 is inflammation. Okay, inflammation. Air pollutants, political matter, nitrogen dioxide, and other air pollutants can cause systemic inflammation. Chronic inflammation is a known factor in the development of insulin resistance. We talk about inflammation a lot on my lives, don't we? We talk a lot about that. Oxidative stress. Pollutants can induce oxidative stress by generating free radicals, which can damage cells and tissues, including those involved in insulin signaling. Hormonal changes. This is very interesting because, okay, remember we talk about insulin resistance. Insulin is a hormone. And so unfortunately, that's not the conversation that we have a lot with our providers or in the matrix of any sort. And insulin being a hormone, it completely changes the way that if you look at your weight loss through that lens, I mean, it shifts things. I'm just telling you, like, I didn't know any of this, right? I mean, if you know my story, if you followed my content, you know, I was very ignorant. I was very clueless. I was sugar addicted. I was eating everything white. I'm Italian. I thought I was never going to give up food, like ever. Like we went to if somebody passed away, and you could only pick between the night before, which is called the wake, balloons on Instagram, the night before, which is the wake, or the funeral where you're going to do the internment. Which one are you going to choose? If you are in an Italian family, we knew that you were going to go to the funeral because the food is after the funeral. And it's going to be really good food. Like you would not dishonor the passing of somebody by not serving good Italian food. So we celebrated with food and we mourned with food both. That's what we did. And so my point being that that's where I was. So to study a lot of this stuff and to find out these connections, so that I could finally lose weight. I actually did end up going from a 2X down to a large in my 50s post my cycle stopping, just because I started to wear a different set of glasses, so to speak, as to how I was viewing weight loss. And I'm convinced that women are in their 40s, just like I was a while ago, sliding into your 40s and you're insulin resistant and you do not know it. And you're like, why can't I lose weight? It's just a different lens. We're not going to look at a points lens or a calorie deficit lens only, or, all of these things. It's, or work your butt off in the gym until your cortisol is so high that now you have another hormonal issue. We're not going to do that. We're going to look at it through the lens of insulin resistance. And I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference. Okay, so let's get back to this. So we were talking about, hold on. This is an Android, so I have to be good with it. I'm learning. Hormonal changes, exposure to certain air pollutants has been shown to disrupt endocrine function. God, you guys, seriously. Potentially affecting hormones involved in glucose metabolism and insulin sensitivity. Super interesting. Direct impact on adipose tissue, fat tissue inflammation. This kind of goes along those lines of obesogens. Okay. Air pollution can lead to inflammation in adipose fat tissue, impairing its ability to store and release energy properly, which contributes to insulin resistance. Like, what the heck? Um, Metabolic pathways, interference with insulin signaling. Pollutants can interfere with pathways involved in insulin signaling, reducing the effectiveness of insulin and leading to higher blood sugar levels. Did you guys know this? Any of this? Does this make sense to anybody? This is so interesting to me. Now, these are the studies. This is where this is coming from, okay? So I can say this, epidemiological studies. Studies have shown that populations, this is where it gets very interesting. Populations living in areas with high air pollution levels have higher rates of insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. Long-term exposure to pollutants like PM 2.5, I don't know what that is, has been particularly associated with increased risk of developing insulin resistance. What is going on? Animal studies. Animal models exposed to air pollution show increased markers. And, yeah, that just is sad. Air pollution show increased markers of inflammation and oxidative stress, along with impaired glucose tolerance and insulin resistance. Human studies have observed correlations between exposure to air pollution and biomarkers of insulin resistance. For example, increased levels of air pollution have been linked to higher fasting. Oh my gosh, to higher fasting glucose levels and impaired insulin sensitivity. Just another layer of like, so where do you live? You know what I mean? Like, I talk to people all the time about, oh, well, we talk about a lot of things like, when is the last meal of your day? Or, because people are they're like, you're waking up in the middle of the night and your insulin is high and it's waking you up and you can't go to sleep. And then you're waking up and you've got, higher blood sugars than you wanted to, even though you haven't eaten. That's that whole dawn phenomenon effect. And people are like, how do I get those down? And all of that kind of stuff. Well, who knew that maybe there's a question that you need to ask yourself, which is, where do you live? Like, what is your environment? I have a friend who literally sold a house and moved to another location because of mold and because her health was declining so drastically for a few years. Like, she could not handle what was going on. And, I was talking to my sister about this too. Like, you build a brand new house, which she just did a couple of years ago, and the gas they call it off-gassing. The off-gassing is through the roof, right? Because everything that we do, all of the chemicals on the carpeting that we put in our homes and the furniture that we have, and all of that stuff can be very affecting, especially if you have asthma, which was a conversation that I had with somebody recently. So the human studies, that's very interesting that your glucose levels fasting can be higher in air pollutant areas. That's very interesting. So the broader health impacts that this is actually talking about is that cardiovascular disease, insulin resistance is a risk for cardiovascular disease, and both conditions have been linked to air pollution exposure. So cardiovascular disease and insulin resistance connected to poor air quality. That's bonkers. That is bonkers. And then, of course, they talk about using air purifiers indoors so that you can mitigate. I would love to know who is insulin resistant and actually has a lot of sensitivities for air quality. I would love to know that. This is a very interesting thought process for me, because again, in talking with people, like in conversation about how to basically turn back around their insulin resistance, how to begin that process of dealing with those higher morning blood sugars, dealing with the different foods that you eat. Oh man, I haven't even said anything about yet the Facebook group. My bad. It must be a Monday morning. Okay. I do have a Facebook group. It's called Ditch Insulin Resistance for Women. And tell them Kirsten sent you, even though I run the group. Do it anyway. You'll see why when you jump in. But In that group, I do a 5-day challenge every month, and I've done it for the last 13 months. And this is our anniversary month. Woohoo! June is our anniversary month, our 1-year anniversary. We're so excited. Good morning, Magda. Good morning. Happy Monday. Good to see you. And I'm actually going to now change. I'm going to add some of this information into what I do for the challenge, because I feel like this is so important for people to know. I think that we don't have a lot of information in general. And then when we do get information, a lot of times the information just is tied to scripts. And that can be really, really frustrating. And those are the conversations that I have a lot with people in the background. Good morning, Suzette. Good to see you. Happy to be here. I'm happy that you're here too, Suzette. But you actually can, this is a common conversation that I have. And that is that this is not a terminal diagnosis. So we actually can become our own advocates. We actually can turn things back around, and we can actually gain back our life again. My father's functioning just went down, 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 down. Okay. And I watched that happen. And then when I was 30, he died, and he was 63. So I have no interest in a poor quality of life. I have zero interest. Having taken care of my mother with dementia, which is also connected to insulin resistance. Isn't that lovely, right? Type 3 diabetes, insulin resistance of the brain. The problem isn't that you die. Sometimes the problem is that you live with something like dementia, or that you live with extremely poor quality of life. When my father passed, 36 hours before, he was throwing up in the toilet from his dialysis that day. And he said to my sister, "This is no way to live." And 36 hours, he was gone. He wasn't in the hospital. All he did was go to a dialysis appointment, which was at the hospital. So, okay, he was in the hospital, but he was at his dialysis appointment. And then he went to the cafeteria to have lunch, and he signed his check, getting ready to pay for his lunch. And he died because he had already had quadruple bypass surgery and a pacemaker and 2 years of dialysis at that point. He had already had all of this time with his lazy Susan full of meds. That's actually what was the beginning of me questioning everything, questioning the matrix, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink. That's right, Elena. Living with poor quality of life, it is terrible. It is really, really bad, and I just feel like, with him having that lazy Susan full of meds, for real, you guys. And that was what my mom was upset about the day after he died. Why did I complain about that? Why did I complain that this was, whatever? And I just questioned, and this is how his life was there for quite a long season. He would inject his insulin in the morning, take all of these medications, have all of these interactions, contradictions, shall we say. And because he was a business owner at that point, he did not own Italian restaurants anymore. He owned furniture stores, used furniture stores here in the cities. He could be on the phone calling his employees, but it took him until noon until he was safe to drive because of the contradictions. That is not quality of life. It's not. So now he took that path of medication. I took the path of supplementation, not because I knew what I was doing. I really want people to hear that. Like, I was the poster child of sugar addict. I was the poster child of not knowing any of this. I didn't eat for my health. I didn't exercise for my health. I didn't do anything. Even though I was gestational diabetic starting in my 20s, I still didn't do anything about it for over 20 years. Did you know that you can be insulin resistant for ever before it ever shows up in your glucose levels in your blood? And in the meantime, you're like, where's all this belly fat coming from? Why am I exhausted all the time? Why do I eat and then I'm hungry again? And it's not like that old saying about eating, Chinese food, you're hungry in an hour. I think it's insulin resistance, not Chinese food, that does that to you. I don't know if you've ever heard that before, but it's like, because your cell is not getting the nutrient, it's not getting the fuel that it needs. So when you're insulin resistant, your cell has closed the door. Close sesame, and it closes the door. Granny Sue, thank you so much for all the likes. You are wonderful. I appreciate you very, very much. So much. Shelly, thank you for the follow. I probably missed some followers. I apologize, you guys. You guys are so awesome on TikTok. I so appreciate you. So what happens then is when insulin is trying to usher fuel, glucose, it turns all of your food into glucose because your body prefers glucose to burn. And that's why if you keep giving it glucose, it'll never get to your fat. It's a little bit of information. If you keep giving, if you're you're insulin resistant, right? And you just keep giving it glucose, you're just going to keep burning sugar. But then what about the fat pockets all over your body? Like, hello, I'm living proof. I understand this, right? Like you get fat on your arms, you get fat on the inside of your knees, you get back fat, you get belly fat. Like it's a little frustrating to say the least, right? So anyway, so it's turning all of your food into fuel and it's trying to usher it into your cell for energy because your body is wonderfully made. God made it so like able to function at a high level. And so it's trying to usher glucose into your cell for energy. And your cell says, the door is closed. Like seriously, stop giving me all this insulin. I can't do it anymore. And now you're left without fuel. So you're exhausted. But the kicker of it is that insulin is a fat storing hormone. That's a major frustration. And so if we're insulin resistant and we slide into our 40s and we do not understand this, this is why our weight is increasing. This is why we can't lose weight. This is why those old methods aren't working anymore. They're not working. And we're frustrated and we think it's us. And now we've got this negative self-talk going on and we're like, well, yeah, you'll never lose that weight. You've never been disciplined enough to follow through anyway. Another Monday morning reset, right? And maybe then it gets really emphasized if we go to the matrix and we talk to somebody in the matrix. And I'm not against the matrix altogether. I'm just saying it in this particular conversation, the frustration I know you have from going to somebody in the med profession and them maybe saying to you, listen, honey, you're just eating more than you think you are. You're just not tracking well enough. You're just lazy. You're just eating too much and you're not talking about it or whatever. These are conversations that I've never been told that ever. But these are the conversations that I have with you in my inbox. Or you've had to go to 3 or 4 endocrinologists. Good morning, Sherry. Good to see you. Good morning. Good morning. So I just know what's kind of going on a little bit in those sectors. And that's really frustrating. Well, what if it's an insulin resistance conversation? What if because your insulin and or your sugars are high, you can't lose weight and you're stuck? What if this is your issue right here? Just what if? Granny, thank you. You're amazing. I love you. What if that's your issue and you didn't know it? So then the question is, what if you can bring down your sugar and your insulin? So that's where, and I wish I had another device. I need another device with my information on it. I mean, I have this one, but I don't have proper information. That's where all of the testimonies come from. I'm going to give you 2 resources here, and then I'll let you go for the morning. The first one is I talk about the trio all the time. I'm going to 3 things because the first thing I'm going to mention is the Facebook group. Ditch insulin resistance for women. Ditch insulin resistance for women. I do a challenge in there every month. The next one is July 8th, Monday, 2:00 Central Standard Time. Then I talk about the trio because what I did was I started with targeted supplementation, not because I was wise and I actually knew what the heck I was doing, but because I did not want to trade out my foods right away because I'm Italian and I actually didn't think that I could. And that's just a really, really, really true story. And in fact, when I finally did work on my ingredients, which is what I teach in the Facebook group, when I finally did trade those out, I allowed myself grace. I did it without shame. Suzette, the carb blocker should be back in stock July 1st. Thank you for asking. If I could look it up right now, I would. But and I didn't look it up this morning, but I think it's July 1st. But when I did, I allowed myself time. And she's bringing up the carb blocker because that's a part of my story. I spent a few years with carb blocker in my pockets, which basically all that does is it's not eliminating, calories from your life. It's stopping the sugar spike. Kristen, good morning. I love it when you show up because you're full of pink hearts. So all of those likes that you give me, it's just pink heart like craziness. It's amazing. I love that. Thank you. Carb blockers, you can up to 500 calories of sugar from hitting your bloodstream. And you're trying to stop that cycle. Okay. And when you can stop the cycle, then you don't have to call on as much insulin, and therefore you don't have as much fat storage. That's really basically, in my layman understanding as a non-doctor, could probably explain that. But I did that for a long time. But it was a really important part of my journey, because then I was able to go, okay, I'm just going to start believing things in a different way. Like, I'm going to stop believing those lies about myself, and I'm going to go on this journey. So the trio is the first thing that I talk to everybody about, because it's 3 supplements that have 3 ingredients that help with insulin sensitivity. And if you want the testimonies, and you guys just take the time, just take 5 minutes, go over to IG. At the top of IG, there's a pink highlight bubble, and it has testimonies that you can filter through. Testimonies. Okay. Testimonies of people's, dawn phenomenon, those sugars going down. And because the sugars go down, then they lose weight. People who were on the injection, and when they went back on because the pharmacy couldn't refill it, and they gained back those 10 pounds, and it didn't work again the second time around for this person. In December, she started the trio, and within 2 weeks, she lost 7 pounds. Somebody else just, the most recent one is actually, I just posted it in the Facebook group, and she said, she started in June 7th, and she's down. No. I don't want to give numbers that are incorrect ever. I'm not going to give you her numbers because I don't remember, and I don't want to say something that's not correct. But if you just go and you look, what I do is on Instagram, I put the stories on my Instagram stories, and then I drop them into the highlight bubble so it stays updated. Okay. So just telling you that's, if you really want to know about the trio, if you really want to know how to start with targeted supplementation to like pull that arrow back and literally target insulin resistance in that way, that's where you want to go. Fireworks on. See, I so confirmed on Instagram. I just had fireworks. I'm just telling you, that's what happens on Instagram. Y'all are so funny. That platform is really funny. But anyway, go and look at the testimonies. And then if you, hold on just a second. I'd like to know about the trio you're talking about. Please send information. Waitley Terry. So, both you guys on Instagram and TikTok, after this live is done, your comment goes poof. And it disappears. So you have to get into my inbox. Okay. Can you get into my inbox? And I will absolutely get you information, because this is like where I start. And this is where all the testimonies come from. And it makes my heart so happy, because if I can help anybody be able to go down this journey, not only can you maybe sleep better for real, because when you turn back insulin resistance, that's one, but also two, maybe have more peace of mind and sleep better. But the second thing is that this entire live was based around the air quality conversation, right? So if anybody needs to have that conversation, let me know. But somebody that I know, my husband, he's actually going to do a webinar inside of a different Facebook group tomorrow night. It's today, Monday, tomorrow night. If you are looking for air quality solutions like that, let me know. In fact, on Facebook, you could just drop the word air. Just drop the word air, and I will get you that information. It's going to be a webinar, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And, the thing is that I've always known about, having good air quality in your home, blah, blah, blah. But I had no idea the connections to so many things, including cardiovascular disease and insulin resistance. Like, that's kind of crazy to me. And there are a lot of people who are trying to mitigate asthma and mold issues, and COPD, etc. And maybe you've never even thought about an air quality system, an air treatment system, or maybe you've done one and it hasn't been good enough. That's that's really very much who I want to talk to. Somebody who needs something that's even better than a HEPA, something that's even 100 times better. Good morning, Miss Anna. Good to see you. Because if we can help mitigate some of those, there's nothing worse than not being able to breathe. And I feel like in 2020, we really found that out to be true. Like that was a really big, it was challenging for a lot of people, just challenging because maybe you thought that your immune system was strong and maybe, you know, whatever, but you still got Rona. And when you did, it exposed a compromise in your lungs. Maybe it exposed something to you that you didn't know. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, this is reality now. And when the wildfires come into Minnesota, we notice that air quality shift quite a bit. And it's like you kind of close up your windows and you have to then just kind of do what you have to do for a few days until it can clear because it takes time, right? And Minnesota has never been known for an air polluted type of a city. I'm right by the cities. We're not in a high air pollution cities. Like that's not normal for us. It's kind of become a little bit more normal because of wildfires on a fairly regular basis. And so that's been over the last couple of years. And then we have signs, you know, digital signs as you're driving, you know, about the wildfires. And you can, thank you, Anna. I buy my clothes now, Anna, thinking of you. No, I'm just kidding. But you're so sweet. You always comment. Your husband owns a mold inspection and remediation company, and it's so prevalent. That is so true. Where do you live, Bailey? I'm just going to call you Bailey. I don't know if that's your name, but I'm going to call you Bailey. Where do you live, Bailey? Because it's very interesting. I was just talking to my husband last night because, like I said, he's going to do this webinar on this air treatment system. And for real, it's like, how can I say this? Greenville, South Carolina. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Do you, as a mold remediation company, make any recommendations to your customers when you go in and you remediate? Do you make any air treatment recommendations to your customer? Like, you know, you could contact this person and they have something for you. I would love to know. In talking about air treatment systems, the cold virus, apparently, I hope I'm speaking this correctly. My husband will go over this tonight. The cold virus is actually small. Hold on. Is it smaller? We tell everyone they need air purifiers, especially with young children. Yep. That's really cool. And I mean, that's just normal now, isn't it? It is. That's interesting. I would love to know. I would love to chat with you and in the background, like in the inbox, if you're open to that. I would love to chat with you about that. I got a thumb on Instagram. That's so funny. I'm trying to think now. Hold on. The cold virus is actually a smaller molecule than Rona. This particular air treatment system will not only take care of Rona, but it will also take care of the cold virus. It's about 100 times more is the effective the right word? Again, I don't ever want to misspeak. It's 100 times greater in being able to remediate, if that's my word, different viruses and different particles, tinier particles. So if something is 0.2, this is 0.02, like that kind of a thing, right? And the ability for it to clear the air faster, to do a round and clear the air in a room, amazing. And there are people who have mold issues and they literally will have smaller, yes, Ruth, thank you. They will have a purification system in every single room because that's just what they need to do for their own function of life, you know? So anyway, but the point being that if that is resonating with you, like you've known for a while that you need to do something about the air quality in your home, or you are living in a city that has high air pollution and you just know that you need to have a little bit of a safe haven of where you can be, where your air quality is really nice and high and clear, then you might want to jump on to the webinar tomorrow night. So in Facebook, you can always drop air. And I see that, and I'll get back to you here and just let you know, it's going to be 7 p.m. Central Standard Time tomorrow. It's going to be in a Facebook group. It's not my insulin resistance one. It's a different one that I have. And I will I'll add you in there so that you can see that tomorrow night. And on the Tickety Talk and IG, I do have to have you guys message me in my inbox. Okay. Because I have no other way. So let's see, what could you do? You could just drop air. Let's keep it easy. You could just drop air in my inbox and I'll know exactly what you're talking about and I'll get you that information. But I hope that was helpful information today. I hope that, just anybody who's you're trying to navigate insulin resistance, you're trying to navigate, any of these pieces that seem to be how is it possible that everything is connected? And it just is because our bodies are so wonderfully made, right? And I'm just saying, this is not a terminal diagnosis. This is turnaroundable. This is figure outable. Okay. And so if you ever need anything when it comes to the Facebook group, the trio, which is the basic, the basic 3 supplements that have 3 ingredients that help with insulin sensitivity. That's where I started. And then I layered after that. That's just my story. But that's where I started. If you need information about that, if you need information about just wanting to get onto the webinar for the air quality treatment system, let me know, because I know that anybody who's dealing with health issues in general, this is all connected. So if you do deal with COPD, asthma, you have a hard time with mold or allergies, this might be something that you really want to get in on. And if it's not for you, maybe it's for somebody else. And you know what? Knowledge and good information is never a disadvantage. Would you agree with that? Knowledge and information is never a disadvantage. It's always only ever helpful. So, all right, I am available to chat with people. Oh, Magda, I'm so glad that was helpful for you today. And again, it's going to be in a different Facebook group, Magda. It's not going to be in the Ditch Insulin Resistance for Women Facebook group. It's in a different one. So I need to tag you. I need to add you in there. I need to add you into that Facebook group so that you guys can get that information. So, and we'll go over, I'm assuming it'll be about maybe an hour, and you'll get some really good information on air quality, and that will help you a lot. And we'll talk specifically about an air treatment system that is of a higher level to help people at a higher level, because I think people are needing different layers. So, all right, have a super blessed day, you guys. I'm going to go make some breakfast, and it's going to be high protein. Trying to think of what I'm going to eat today. It's going to be over 30 grams of protein. That's going to stabilize my blood sugar. It's going to keep me full and satiated for a very long time, hours, 4 hours plus. It's going to keep me very, very satiated. And it makes my hormones really happy. So, and if that's the kind of information you need, that's the Ditch Insulin Resistance for Women. Have a blessed day, Anna. She post my breakfast in the group. I will post my breakfast in the group. I will do it. All right. See you guys later. Have a great day. All right. I have to do that first. See you later, you guys. All right. See you later, Facebook. And again, you can always drop air if you want me to get you direct information so that you are, because I can do that on Facebook and I can't do that on other platforms. So you guys are special because I can get right into your messenger and give you clear information. All right. Have a great day.